Hey, Dustin here, your video tour guide. I've been getting a ton of questions about my S1H on my other YouTube channel where I post my portfolio videos, and I'm going to be making more videos testing and focusing on those questions, but for today, I'm going to go over my custom settings that I've set up for the S1H. I've been shooting with this camera for the past 2 months, and I absolutely love it. If you want to watch some of the videos I've shot on the S1H, feel free to stop by my other channel and let me know what you think. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right guys, so before I get started, keep in mind that over time, this custom setup could change, and what I do for my custom settings may not work for you, but if you're just getting started with the camera, this can be a good baseline and get you more familiar with how you can customize it to your needs. I'm also filming with my S1H because I can actually see myself while I'm filming, unlike my other Sony cameras. I don't have an external monitor either, so sue me. Maybe in the future, hopefully in the future, we'll have an external monitor, you know. It's a slow build, okay? Don't judge. To access it, hit the menu set center button, go to the blue gear menu and scroll to operation, and you'll see Q.MENU settings right there. For layout style, I use mode 1, but feel free to use mode 2. The only difference is mode 1 gives you a preview of what your camera is seeing, and mode 2 does not. But it makes it switching between the settings easier to see. I'm going to focus on customization for video. If you have an S1H for photo, it's still a fantastic photo camera. But I assume you bought this camera preferably for video, so I'm gonna focus on video. The first menu item I have set is my rec quality list. This way I can quickly change between slow motion and normal speed because yes, I could just shoot everything in slow motion and speed it up and blah, 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 you know, you guys get it. But sometimes I need a wider field of view since the S1H will crop in certain shooting modes. So it's nice to quickly switch between them. Or maybe you want a higher bit depth or in 4K, you're smart. You guys get it. One thing to note though, if you haven't set up your rec quality list, the option will be grayed out. So go into the red video menu, and in option 3 is called image format, where you can set up your rec quality list. Next one to set is variable frame rate. This is another reason why I like to have rec quality at the #1 position, because you'll notice that VFR will be grayed out in certain modes. Panasonic made it super easy to know though if VFR is available in that mode. When you go into the rec quality menu at the bottom left, it'll tell you what's available. So make sure in your list you put a rec quality that'll allow VFR so you can quickly switch between them. Next is mic level, so you can turn your gain up or down easily on the fly. Next is photo styles. This makes it easy to switch between all the different color profiles in case I don't want to shoot something in vlog. Next menu is LUT monitor display. I've noticed that when I change to other photo modes, it doesn't seem to continue to display my LUT, which in my opinion is a nice feature, but I could also see this being a problem for those who don't want to shoot in vlog but still preview some kind of a LUT they've imported. And maybe there's a way around this or a way to change it, so let me know in the comments if I'm missing something. Next is video frame marker. I really like to change my video aspect ratios in post, so this is really nice to give me an idea what the framing will look like. You may have to customize this to what aspect ratio you'd like, which you can find in the blue gear menu under monitor/display. Click video frame marker and go to set. Here you can choose the different aspect ratios, the color of the preview frame, even the mask opacity, which I love. I tend to choose either 100% or 75%. If I'm not sure I'll crop it in post, I'll do 75% to give me an idea, but to speed up my workflow in post, I'll choose 100%. That way I'm not getting a false sense of what my end framing will be and accidentally frame something out that I want in. Next we have synchro scan. I love that this camera has this. You'll notice that sometimes when you have a really cheap LED in your shot, it'll give a super undesirable flicker, and any light, lots of lights can do this, but with synchro scan on, you can select the exact shutter speed in order to eliminate that flicker. Next to it is peaking sensitivity. I've noticed at the highest peaking setting, I have a harder time nailing my focus because there's just so much peaking going on. So I usually sit around 1 or 0, but definitely test some things out and see what you're comfortable with. Next is histogram. Since I don't always shoot in vlog, I like to sometimes quickly throw in a histogram just to make sure I'm not clipping on my highlights and nail that exposure. And speaking of highlights, the next one is zebras. You will want to set the zebra percentage beforehand. I believe vlog clips around 90% in your highlights, so I like to set this to about 85%. If you know exactly where it clips, let me know in the comments, but from my research, it's around 90%. Next one's set to image area of video. I used to custom set this to a button in the past to quickly change between full frame and Super 35 in case I needed a little extra zoom, but sometimes I'd accidentally bump it and do entire shoots with it on. If you set it here, you won't accidentally bump it, but just make sure you keep track of when you turn it on and off. And lastly is your waveform or vector scope. Personally, I find both these displays a little hard to read and see, but if you make it the biggest size, it does make it somewhat easier. And it's possible I would change this in the future since I haven't used it as often as I thought, but let me know in the comments if you know of something that would be more useful to set instead of this one. Okay, so now we're done with the Q menu. Let's move on to the function menu. It'll be 3 rows down from where you set the Q menu. Click setting in rec mode and you're there. The first option to change is the button on the top right, which is normally exposure comp. I like to change this to focus area set. This way, when I'm in manual focus, I can click that button and I can control the size of which area I want to focus in on. Then when I hit the center menu button, and it'll zoom in so I can more easily see if I'm in focus. Next one to change is ISO to dual ISO. I'll get into this later why I like to have this here instead of ISO. The S1H has 2 native ISOs to help reduce noise when you need to push your ISO. I shoot in vlog a lot and you can set it to auto and it'll switch between them automatically. But sometimes I'll be close enough to the higher native ISO of 4000 and I'd rather choose that option and stop down to help control noise than have it choose for me automatically. Now go to the next page and choose function 1 and change that to peaking. This makes it easy to turn peaking on and off when it's needed and when it's not. For function 2, I like to set it to status LCD display. This will change the LCD screen on the top of your camera from this to this. As you can see, it brings up a ton of the other settings you have set on your camera and just gives you flexibility to switch between the menus on the fly. It's really about it for the function buttons. I think the camera is extremely well designed and laid out already. You can access pretty much everything else with the default buttons. There are a few things to change in the touch settings, which is right below the Q menu settings. Go to touchpad AF and change this to exact. This way, when you're in continuous autofocus, you can touch exactly where you want the camera to focus instead of dragging that, square box in place. Although I did notice when you're in manual focus, this does not work. And I may want to use that sometimes to click exactly where I want to zoom in. I think this would be something that's relatively easy for Panasonic to change, unless I'm just missing something. So let me know in the comments if you know how to change this, because I would really think it was useful. You can set up the touch tab if you like. Personally, I don't like to use the touch tab, but if that changes, I'll let you know what I set up. Now, the last and final thing to change is the control dial assignment. Go to the blue gear and then go to operation menu, click dial set, control dial assignment, then choose ISO. This way, when I spin my control wheel, it changes my ISO. I prefer this because it makes it much quicker for me to adjust my ISO settings on the fly. That's everything. I'd be super interested if you guys have suggestions or have a different setup on your Lumix because, like I mentioned, what works for me may not work for you. If you're new though with Panasonic and need some direction, hopefully this video helps, and give it a double thumbs up if it did. I'm going to be doing more of those videos in the future, testing out autofocus, low light, the different codecs on the camera, the IBIS, and much more. So subscribe and hit the bell button if you'd like to be notified when I upload those videos. But in the meantime, happy filming.